Welcome to Chris Parkin Shooting Sports. This is my review today of the FX Dynamic Express 500. Now, like every FX air rifle, the versatility and interchangeability, modularity of them all is quite extensive, so always best to have a look at the description below and have a look at the FX website, and you can also pick up prices for where you are in your market. But I'm going to tell you about my experiences of this rifle. So, what can we tell you to start with? Well, as usual, it's got the AMP regulator, it uses the smooth twist liner system, and you can have the extra heavy liner system if you go for the 600 or 700mm barrel plenum setup on these rifles. This is the 500, which makes it a little bit more compact, and FX themselves say that this one wants to hunt. Now, that's up to you, that's your impression, your preferences, so let's talk about how I found it. Now, you'll probably see on the end of the plenum here, we've got a sound moderator. So, end of the barrel is screw cut. So you'll have seen in the video I put a moderator on it because it does drop the firing volume quite significantly. Very, very gentle on the ears and on the neighbours and on anything else. So let's talk about it a little bit more as we go along, because you're all going to want to know what power it's producing. Moving back, we've got a full chassis system, we've got a barricade stop here, we've got Arca rail on the underside, and it's also got loads of M-lock, and you can see I've put some M-lock on it to put a Picatinny bipod on. That's a tier 1, but you can add all sorts. The plenum over the top here does make it a little bit more difficult to interchange barrels and calibers. If you own one of these, that's something you might want to look into, but I don't think this is as quickly a barrel change rifle as, for example, the Impact or the Crowns or things like that. You can see at the front we've got a bridge over the top of the plenum, so that gives it a little bit of extra resistance to getting bumped or nudged, because as we know, the liner system within the barrels does, like to be handled a bit more delicately than some barrel systems, and having that protection on top also allows you to add accessories, but it does give a bit of protection to it, and you can, if you want, put your hand on top if you're taking a barricade shot or something similar to that. Looking at the receiver itself, you've got the regulator pressure and the fill pressure clearly visible to the eye. It comes with a Foster connector, and it fills here on the bottom for Foster, and it's a 250 bar max fill. Now, the FX website says that this rail is 20 minutes of angle or 6 milliradians. Actually, on here it does tell you that this one is 9 mils or 30 minutes of angle. That does give you a lot of ability to zero it and shoot it at longer distances, but you do need to be aware if you've got a scope on board that's got a little bit less mechanical travel, you do need to make sure you can still zero it at the range you're most likely to shoot at. And if you're a short range hunter, 25-30 meters maybe, just be wary of that 9 mils and 30 minutes of angle. But as usual, Picatinny rail does give you a huge versatility for using whatever scope rings you like, and there's plenty of it to make up the spacing on it. Do be aware though that the magazine fits underneath the scope, and you need to make sure you can have room for whatever scope system you use. It's side lever cocking, you can swap it to the other side if necessary. This is a safe dry fire, by the way. It's got serrations milled into the hard anodized finish of the aluminium to make sure you've got good grip on it and you can use it in cold weather. It clicks home, toggles shut nicely, so you don't end up accidentally flicking it open like some air rifles where the toggle isn't very strong. There's a safety catch on the side, 2 positions for fire and safe, and the trigger on the front is fully adjustable for both position, weight, etc, etc. You can work through the FX manual as much as you like, just be aware that some adjustments don't fall within their preferences. Now, you can adjust regulator pressure on this gun, and I'll come to that later, but I've run this absolutely as it was delivered to me. All I've done is play with the macro and micro adjusters a little bit just to experiment with the power available to me. I've run it on 23 power with a micro adjuster about halfway because that seemed to give me a good tune, but I kind of stuck to 4 projectiles and I went for an average tune that worked well with all of them for hunting scenarios. The grip is an AR-15 system, it's rubberised, it's nice to hold on to, you can get good control of the rifle even with one hand if necessary, and of course you've got plenty of fore in there to hold underneath. The Arca rail allows you to shoot easily from a tripod too, and any bipod of course gives you great stability from prone. I like the fact that the barrel to the underside distance is very, very small, and when you are shooting in unsupported positions, the rifle is notably more stable than the vertically stacked rifles with a buddy bottle system underneath the front of the barrel. The buddy bottle here is carbon fibre, it's 480 cc's, and you've got adjustable length of pull and also adjustable height on the recoil pad as well. Do be aware you want to use fairly high scope mounts on this rifle, both to get it over the top of the magazine and also to give yourself a good cheek position on the gun, because this is, as necessary, slightly wider than the normal cheek piece on a regular rifle stock, which is half to a third of the width of that. You know, something more similar to this effectively in terms of width to actually go under your cheekbone without displacing your jaw. You can run the 500mm barrel and plenum up to 70 foot-pounds in 2.2 specification with full pressure on the regulator. Overall length is 990mm or 39 inches. Overall weight is 3,200 grams or 7 pounds. The AMP Mark II regulator is both micro and macro adjustable, as well as the actual regulator pressure to tune the gun as you prefer. Although there's no real recoil to absorb, the recoil pad is curved and it locks well into your shoulder, it's grippy and it holds position well. Undoing these Allen keys on the side here allows you to slot the recoil pad out, and it gives you a little bit more length of pull if you desire. As standard, the gun is quite long anyway at 15 inches, which is 380mm approximately. So let's talk a little bit more about shooting it. Well, you can have this rifle in 1.7, 2.2, 2.5, 30 or even 35 caliber in some of the longer variants. That gives you 21, 18, 16, 13 or 10 shot capacity on the standard type FX magazines. And if I show you this magazine, this is how you load it. You basically turn that round to remove the top cap. You'll notice now there's a much deeper groove in this top cap, and the new receiver allows a thicker magazine for longer slugs. Essentially, all you do is rotate that all the way around against its spring pressure and drop one pellet or slug in there. That allows you then to fill all the rest back up, and it will spring close on itself. Pop the back on here, lock it round, and that slots back in the side of the gun. It's fairly fault free. The new FX magazines are far more reliable than the older ones, and I haven't had a single jam with this gun, so I'm very happy with that. This is 2.2, so magazine capacity is 18 shots. Now, looking at the shots, this is the second target I shot, because the first target I shot, which was 25 metres on a very, very windy day, was pretty bad, to be honest, and that's my fault because it was just horrendously windy. This was on a fine, still day with nice lane to shoot down and plenty of windage cover, so I didn't get any kind of crosswind issues with it, and this one shot at 50 metres. In order here, we've got JSB Diablo's 15.89 grains, the same pellet, 18.13 grains. These are favourites of mine, particularly this one in FAC air rifles, 2.2 caliber. And then we've also got the FX hybrid slugs at 22 grains, and I use some Zan projectiles at 25.5. Now this has got the superior STX barrel liner, which certainly seemed to work extremely well here with the 25.5 grain slugs, but you can have the heavy liner as well if you want to go even heavier than that. But of course, I think there's a balance to be found. If you're going to go much heavier than 25.5 grains in a 2.2, you might be thinking of moving up to 2.5 or even 30 caliber if that's your preference. From a 250 bar fill, I could actually get up to 120 shots before I reached the 75 bar regulator pressure. I would put a caveat to that and say that beyond about 80 shots, you could hear slightly more noise from the internal valves and hammers, and it did take longer to repressurize. So I tended to stick at 80 shots or thereabouts for absolute maximum performance. But of course, depending on how you tune your rifle, that's something you're going to have to learn individually to suit your exact needs. I do think this is a bit more of a range rifle than a hunting rifle due to the ergonomics of it with the metal and the angular structure of it. But, you know, horses for courses, everybody prefers their own type of rifle. Now, these are all 5-shot groups, and if I just drop a pellet on and just flatten these out, you'll get a good idea of scale on them. I think it's fair to say that the tightest groups were actually with the heaviest Zan slugs, but I didn't shoot the gun enough to really absolutely rule any pellet out for usage. I tend not to use the 15.89 in 2.2 FAC spec just because I get a little bit more power and I think a bit more efficiency and just a little bit more worth from the 18.1s. Those are my favourites for ratting. As usual, the hybrid slugs are a little bit short at 22 grains. They stabilise very well and are a little bit more versatile to more rifles, but I was pleased to say the liner in this gun certainly worked well with the 25.5 grain Zan slugs, which are slightly longer again. That is probably the best group I've shot at 50 metres, which is frankly pretty stunning and one of the best I've shot from an FAC air rifle. So I can't really complain about those two there. Those are both Zan, these are both the FX pellets here, those are the JSBs, and those are also JSBs. There's 2 groups, 3 groups, 1 group, 2 groups, 3 groups. And I tend to aim at the points of the diamonds. It just gives me a little bit more shooting time within the sort of same field of view on the camera. In terms of power, the 18.13 grain JSBs were doing 858 feet per second average, which is 29.6 foot-pounds. Now, if I tell you I did a 26 shot string with only 11 feet per second variation, that was very impressive, but it wasn't quite the smallest group I shot. If we go to the other end of the scale with the Zan slugs, we were actually pulling 33.9 foot-pounds with those, which is significantly more powerful. And if you find the need for that, great, maybe those are the ones for you. But I think ballistically speaking, the Zan slugs certainly are the ones to shoot for target purposes. Right, well thank you for watching that review. I hope you've enjoyed it. That gives you my personal impression of the gun, but don't forget to have a look in the description. You'll find the FX website and also Sportsman Gun Centre website, and you can find about even more details about what FX can offer in terms of the modularity and versatility of FX range. Sportsman have supplied this rifle. Thank you very much to them for letting me use it for 3 weeks. I think it's fair to say it's an extremely well-made rifle. It is definitely one of my more favoured FX guns, and I think it shows the greatest evolution. Now we've got to the dynamic because it's just got that little bit more update over the Pantera, which is definitely the more target gun. This is kind of a crossover target and hunting gun. Personally, I prefer wooden stocks or synthetic stock rifles for hunting because I like the fact I can hold on to them without it drawing the heat out of my hands, and I prefer the less angular build of it, you know, when you're around foliage and crawling under barbed wire, fences, around trees, bushes, things like that. But this rifle was more usable in a hunting scenario, and it was more versatile if you do want to use targets and do more tuning to it. The plenum system is certainly very accurate and consistent. The consistent of the figures over the chronograph, I was using one of FX's true ballistic chronographs, with the 18.13 JSB pellets, the actual extreme spread was stunningly good. 5-shot groups were less than 5 feet per second, and a 26-shot group actually only went to 11 feet per second. The other projectiles weren't quite as efficient and consistent as that, but I think that goes to show if you want to tune the rifle exactly to your preferred projectile, you are going to get some stunning results from it. The stock is very stiff, you can use it on a bipod, and of course having that plenum floating over the fore end with no interruptions on the barrel whatsoever gives you a little bit more stability throughout long-term use and more protection to the barrel from getting nudged, bumped and knocked. I would suggest adding a sound moderator because of course, although it looks like it's a shrouded barrel, it's a plenum system. That's pressure bearing. It's not a silencer and won't reduce the noise. With the sound moderator on, not particularly expensive, something like an SAK or a Donny FL, yes, you will reduce firing volume significantly and it makes the gun shootable all day with no ear defence, anything like that. Well, I hope you've enjoyed that review. Please like, subscribe, comment and click the notification bell to keep track of my regular uploads. Don't forget to go all the way through to the end of the video and buy your tickets for the 2024 British Shooting Show. Thank you for watching. Bye for now.